packet pot, I samosa roll ka.
My mind.
You be perfect in
And I'm looking this way, right?
This straight.
Just straight like this.
Correct.
You know, blind people have a lot of street this way.
packet and non packet factory will have to see me.
My wife, she tells me all the time. I said, no, I'm not. You're going the wrong way. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله إن خير الكلام كلام الله سبحانه وتعالى وخير الهدى هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها إن كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار وبعد. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يهدينا ويبصرنا من علم النافع ونسأل الله أن يخلصنا جميعا في كل قول وعمل آمين. Tonight, inshallah wa ta'ala, I'm sure Doc will keep me abreast of the time so don't go long-winded, but this issue المذاهب في الإسلامية is a big discussion and it's very well needed because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us after his statement يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. Then Allah said وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. So Allah begins with addressing us as believers. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he has the famous statement that everyone knows whenever you hear يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. He said you should pay close attention. He said because either Allah Tabaraka wa ta'ala, and keep in mind Allah doesn't make mistakes, number one, hasha lillah. Number two, Allah, he always does things with a purpose and a reason in mind, not haphazardly, hasha lillah, number two. And number three, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from his names and attributes, two of them are Rahmanu, Allah wasn't Fa'lanu, and Rahim, Allah wasn't Fa'id, meaning the one who has the mercy, Ar-Rahman. He has the mercy for all that he creates, Muslim, non-Muslim, young, old, educated, Arab, non-Arab, insects, even what we say, inanimate objects, Jibal, Al-Ashjar, everything, Allah has mercy for. Ar-Rahim, this is the one now, he's going to give that mercy. So these two names of Allah, and they're primitive to Al-Fatiha, everyone should know them, hear them. This is one of the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited us from fighting and difference. And after he addressed us as believers, then Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said either Allah is going to tell you something that's good for you, that's why you pay attention when you hear all you who believe, or he's going to tell you stay away, avoid something that's bad for you. So after he addressed the believers, and at the end, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ, and don't die except as a Muslim, which we can zoom in on that. Don't die except as a Muslim doesn't mean I'm a Muslim because of my grandfather and my grandfather and my grandfather, and we're like 5 generations of Muslims, but I didn't have any Islam in my life. Don't die as a Muslim doesn't mean I took shahada in the prison But when I got out, I went back to my old life selling drugs. And don't die as a Muslim doesn't mean simply out of the qawl, just simply you have shahada. But here, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His Prophet mentioned, and the Sahaba, they mentioned when you talk about this, it means obeying Allah at the time of death. Very important. Obeying Allah at the time of death. Very important. This is part of the whole concept of not dying except as a Muslim. So in order to do a service to yourself, trying to die like that, in order to achieve the commandment of Allah, the next ayat, Allah Azza wa Jalla, Allah mentioned the conjunction to show how you do that. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. So Allah did two things. He showed you how to be that Muslim, to be that person who's a believer, all the way to the end when He said, don't die except as a Muslim, meaning worshiping Allah, obeying Allah, giving the service to Him, and servicing the society, servicing the people. This is a part of being a Muslim. Then Allah showed you how, by combining, by unifying, by being as a people when it comes to the psychology, how you think, when it comes to the actions, how you move, when it comes to the productivity, be as a unit. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا. The Book of Allah, the Sunnah of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then Allah prohibits you the opposite, which is killing us, which is something that people were fighting about, which why we have to discuss madhabism in Islam. وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Naam, وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. And don't fight and divide. So when you talk about this issue, getting right down, as they say, to the nitty-gritty, because we don't have a lot of time. This is a lecture series, believe me. Like a 3-day lecture, still you wouldn't do justice, but you will be able to understand more. When you talk about madhab, what is madhab in the layman sense? If you go to college, for example, you have subject matters, biology, science, math, and each one of those subject matters is going to have a teacher. Maybe one of the teachers' name is Mr. Ahmed. Maybe another teacher is Mrs. Jones. Maybe another teacher name is so-and-so and so-and-so, fulan, like this. You choose that same course that your fellow classmate chooses based on what you want, what time, how long the class, how many credits, and if you like the teacher. But each teacher is going to teach that subject differently. Each one has his own background, his own experience. So when you say madhab, this is the best meaning in English. Madhab, what that person uses as an evidence, what that person uses as a basis, what that person has from Islam, physically, in theory, and practicality, to justify what he's teaching to the people. That's madhab. And some would say, well, why do we follow madhab? And then others might say, well, what was the madhab before the madhabs came out? What did the people follow? So we say the answer to that, you need a madhab because you need a teacher. You need a curriculum. So this is what the madhab provides for you, curriculum, gives you foundation. And none of them intentionally try to fight and argue, because all of the madhab that you have will begin with the madhab of the Sahaba. Meaning each Sahaba had some knowledge, but some of them had different views about the same ayah, different views about the same hadith, different views about the principles that you extract from the Quran and the Sunnah. Yes, it should be extracted, principles, ideas. Allah says, لَعَلَّكُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ لَعَلَّكُمْ يَتَدَبَّرُونَ. So this, if you're going to look at something and extract, think about it, this is what Allah is telling you to do. Come with ideas that stem from the Quran. لَا يُجَابُسُهُ لَكِنْ يَعْنِ مَا الْإِسْتِنْبَاطِ مِنْهُ. not to go beyond the limits over the text, but to take from the text what makes sense, what's practical, what fits the text. So all of the people that ever came in history that taught something, they believed that, because this is part of the meaning of Allah when He said to be together, and on the Book of Allah, meaning the Islam, or some would say the Book of Allah, the Quran, or some would say the Book of Allah, Quran, and the Sunnah. All of those are right, and not to divide, not to fight and argue. So there has to be unintentionally the difference or the debate or the issue at hand. When we talk about the Prophet ﷺ, then he's the first teacher. He's the first one to have madhab, but we call his madhab sunnah because he used that term. Then you have companions, madhab of the companions, or we'll say, yani madrasat Abdullah ibn Abbas, his school or his theory, like this. Then you go to the second generation, tabi'een, third generation, itba' tabi'een. And by that time now you have the famous Abu Hanifa. You have the famous Abu Hanifa. So this, you have some teachings. Then you have Imam Malik. Although Imam Malik, he's somebody who was in Al-Medina, but Abu Hanifa is older than him when we talk about chronologically. Then you have Imam al-Shafi'i, and you have Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. You also have Jafar al-Sadiq, which is tied to Ali ibn Abi Talib, his lineage. You also have the Madhab al-Dhahiriyya, Abi Dawood, or Ibn Hazm. All of these are what's considered madahib. So when you talk about these issues, there's going to be, naturally, obviously speaking, somebody's going to be right, somebody's got to be wrong. So the first thing that is to be answered, do you follow madhab? Is it permissible? And why do we follow? Say yes. You follow a teaching because knowledge didn't come to you in the mailbox. You have to have a teacher. Going way back to the Prophet, and then you come down to generations, so you will have somebody that you learn from. Number two, is it from the religion? Yes, you've been commanded to seek the knowledge, to learn the knowledge. Just as the Prophet ﷺ, Jibreel brought him the knowledge has to come through somebody to you. Number three, is it bid'ah? Is it innovation? No. Although somebody might say that, again, we're looking at people can be right and people can be wrong. And we'll prove that it's not bid'ah. From amongst the things about madhab, each one of them intentionally tried to teach the people, and they said, إِذَا صَحَّحَ الْمَذْهَبِ إِذَا صَحَّ الْحَدِيثِ فَهُوَ مَذْهَبِي. إِذَا صَحَّحَ. That means if you find a statement, an action, or an approved action from the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But for example, you came to me, you asked me something, I told you from the knowledge that I had. You'll find out that there's an authentic hadith that is different from what I taught you, all four of them. Imam Abi Hanifa bin Thabit, Imam Malik bin Anas, Imam al-Shafi'i, Ibn Idris, and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, all of them said, madhabi. What does this mean? That means take what I gave you and substitute what you found, what you learned, what came to you of that hadith is authentic. Why? Because Allah wa ta'ala told the Prophet, ittabi'u ma unzila ilaykum min rabbikum. O Prophet Muhammad, this is the Prophet. He doesn't get a break. He doesn't get a pass. There's no exception to the rule. Allah told him, ittabi'u ma unzila ilaykum min rabbikum. Follow that which came to you from your Lord. Now imagine, put yourself back in the time of the Prophet. Starting with no lights. We have lights. Say alhamdulillah. Say alhamdulillah. You have nice carpet. You're not sitting on the hard dirt floor and some bug and scorpion just stung you. Say alhamdulillah. You have nice cold water. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Say alhamdulillah. But imagine during that time what he was faced with. Just the climate and where he lived. And then everybody's pulling at him. They want him to take this position. And those who don't like him said,
kahin, he's a lying sorcerer. Other sahib majnoon, he's crazy. Imagine. But Allah told him, stay the course, follow what came from Allah. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا مِن دُونِهِ أَوْلِيَاءَ, and don't follow others as a solution, as a source of knowledge, as somebody who has told you what to do. قَلِيلًا مَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Most people will not recognize or reflect or think about this type of solution to just following anybody. So you have to follow away. But the problem is when you don't understand, as humans, they will make mistakes. From amongst them, we'll take example from each madhab to show they're human. But they told you again, when you will find something that's authentic, when you will find something that is from the Quran, when you will find something from the hadith, even in the case of ijtihad, there's no ayat that you know of, or the ayat doesn't make sense to you as a proof, or you don't know of any hadith that's authentic, then you'll make ijtihad. You find something that's similar from the religion to solve the problem. The Prophet ﷺ told Mu'adh ibn Jabal that when he sent him to Yemen. He said, "O Mu'adh, you're going to Yemen. You're going to place Jews and Christians. I'm sending you to be a judge, to solve problems, to give da'wah, to be a leader, and so forth and so forth." He said, "What will you judge by? ماذا تحكم به?" When you have to solve a problem, what are you going to do? What tools are you going to use? Mu'adh, of course, he said, Kitab Allah, the Quran. He said, فَإِن لَمْ تَجِدُوهُ فِي الْقُرْآنِ. But if you don't find a text, if you don't find a solution, if you don't find a source in the Quran, it may be there, but when you look at it, you say, that doesn't appeal to be a proof for me. I don't understand that to fit the context. This is the human mind, no problem. So the Prophet understood that. Mu'adh understood that. So he said, if you don't find in the Quran what you need to solve the problem, what would you do? What would you judge by? He said, by your way, by your example, by your statement, by the sunnah. He said, فَإِن لَمْ تَجِدُوا فِي السُّنَّةِ. What happens if you don't have something for me to solve the problem? He said, I'm going to take my right. Meaning I'm going to take something that makes sense, that doesn't go against the Quran, that doesn't go against the sunnah to solve the problem. So sometimes it's jihad. Sometimes it's difficult to be upon sunnah based upon circumstance, environment. So all of this in actuality is from the sunnah. When you don't find it in the Quran, when you don't have the knowledge from the Quran, when you don't have the knowledge from the sunnah, as a person of knowledge, not a layman. Because the layman can't say, well, I don't know what in the Quran, I don't know what hadith, and just do it. No. There's a tartib, there's a process here. So for the first one, we take Abi Hanifa. Abi Hanifa, from amongst those people that talk about the obligation to recite Al-Fatiha in the Salah. Some say you have to, some say that you don't. Those who say you do, they're the majority, they're most of the scholars. Those that say that you don't, they're very, very, very few. And Abu Hanifa is from amongst them. So do you have to recite Al-Fatiha from the floor? Anybody? Said no? 50? Yes?
Yes.
So I can say Allahu Akbar. Qul Wallahu Allahu Samad. Allah. No Al-Fatiha.
No.
So that's good?
No.
Lima. Why?
It's from the arcans of Salah.
What about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَقْرُؤُ مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنْهُ. But read what's easiest for you from it, the book of the Allah, the Quran. What about that?
The Prophet explained us what we need to read Al-Fatiha because it's rukn from Arkan al-Salah. The Prophet explained,
MashaAllah, he said the Prophet explained.
Yeah.
Barakallahu feekum. So you see, this human error. And this show you that madhab has to be something that you follow. But again, you want to find each one have some variation because the mind is the thing that differs. Not the text. The text stays the same. The environment, the mind, the situation, these things that change. You have Imam Malik. Imam Malik, example of Imam Malik. He was from amongst those who said the saliva of the dog. هكذا saliva of the dog. He said, no, you cannot use the hadith that the dog, if he slab or he lick in the vessel that you eat from, you wash it in one narration 7 times, one of them with dirt, another narration 8 times, one of them with dirt. Like you use Sabun or Clorox, you use it as a cleaning agent, then you wash it, you rinse it, wash it, you rinse it, you wash it, you rinse it, to make sure nothing is there from the cleaning agent nor the bacteria. Imam Malik, he doubts that issue. He said, no. Why? Because that same dog, Allah just mentioned him in Surah Al-Ma'idah, that you can take this dog and he's mukallibina ya'allimunahunna mimma 'allamakum Allah. Aywa, those dogs you taught them to hunt. What are they going to hunt with? Their hands, their feet, or their mouth? Can you eat that meat from a hunting dog? Aywa. So you see the mistake of Imam Malik because of human error. Imam Shaikh, rahimahullah ta'ala, the Prophet he mentioned, and wallahi, this is touchy because we're in a world where, you know, when we go for business, interview, whatever, we are people very interpersonal as Americans. You shake hands, you hug, you tap on the shoulder, hi hon, have a good day. The Prophet told us it will be better for a person not to shake the hand of a lady. And here, better means you have a choice. You can do it, not do it. No, better here means it will be better for you not to do it, meaning don't do it. And now if you look logically speaking, we take that which the Prophet said, we don't know about it. What happens in the workplace if the lady says, he made me feel uncomfortable? If the lady says, he touched me on the hand and, you know, I feel that's sexual harassment. If the lady says, you know, he licked his lips at me. What happens in the job place today? Anybody? Quickly. Fire. SubhanAllah. Somebody said problem. What kind of problem?
Maybe you're going to end up in a jail.
SubhanAllah. He may end up in the jail. What do you say on the right? First charges, yeah. But see, sometimes we don't see the Islamic side, but we see the logical side that's in front of us. But look at the wisdom of the Prophet, you know, this issue. But Imam Malik was one, Imam Shafi'i was one of them that allowed, if you shake the lady's hand, between your hand and that lady's hand, yani some cloth, or she's behind the hijab where you don't see if she's, you know, beautiful, you know, unless it's a desire, like this. But this is a mistake because human error, judgment, you know, and different things that they're trying to do to solve the problem. Also, you have Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. Can a lady go to the grave of her father? He's dead. He's been dead a year. Can she go to the grave tomorrow to sit there, to think about him? Maybe she's going to say salam at the grave, like the Prophet says, Salamu alaikum, ya ahlul diyar, al-mu'mineen, muslimeen, muslimat. Oh, inhabitants of the grave, salam, peace be upon. Can a lady go to the grave like that? Don't be afraid. Yes. Somebody said yes. For $50,000, everybody's going to raise their hand now, right? Somebody says yes. What about somebody want to agree or go against? What do you think? Is he right? Maybe, maybe not. What do you think?
It depends on the intention of the woman.
Depends on the intention of the woman. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, guess what? He made it prohibited. Because the Prophet he did prohibit for the ladies to go to the grave. But we also have some hadith later on. The Prophet allowed Salama to go to the grave. Aisha went to the grave of the Prophet when he died. You think Aisha would have went to the grave of the Prophet? She's the mother of the believers. From the scholars of Islam, from our women. We think she would have went to the grave of the Prophet because he's the Prophet if she knew it was haram? No. And just as a rule for that point about Imam Ahmad's different, and then we'll wind down 2 more minutes. If the Prophet tells the women not to go to the grave because they will cry, they will be emotional more so than men, because everybody's emotional. Sometimes the brothers, all they say, oh, she's emotional. Oh, no, we're all emotional. Men cry. Men laugh, men get upset, men get jealous. That's emotion. Women have it too, but they have a sense of it in a way of increasement more than men. But we're all emotional creatures. So Prophet ﷺ, for that reason, he told the women, don't go to the grave, especially early on in Islam. Once they learn the etiquettes, then you found the Prophet ﷺ lightening up. And so therefore, if the Prophet tells you not to do something in this time, then you do that thing again. The Prophet, he sees you, he knows you're doing it, and he doesn't say anything to you, then understand that that thing becomes disliked and makruh. And that's what happened. Told Umm Salama in the hadith not to go. Then another time she went, he didn't say anything, and Imam Nawawi said this shows that he visited the grave as makruh for the ladies, not haram. And some said it can be raised to the level of haram if you know that those ladies are going to take it there. They don't know the etiquettes. They're going to wail. They're going to try to jump in the grave with the person. Then in that case, for them it became haram. So the point here is that madhabs are important. They're not the rule of thumb. The rule of thumb is the book of Allah. On whatever level you can gain knowledge of the book of Allah. That's the first source of knowledge. Authentic sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, narrations of the Sahaba, and we say narrations. But there's a difference of opinion because some people say the narration of the Prophet's companion is nas, it's like a text. But we know it's not, except that it's in agreement with the Quran and the Sunnah. For example, any babies here? Everybody's adults. Teenagers here, right?
Yes, I have children, yes.
Okay. I'll leave that example. But you know, today children are very advanced and filled with life, believe it or not. But when it comes to dealing with women, there are certain codes and ethics as a husband and a wife. But Ibn Umar went beyond that. And he took a general ayah, that women are your tilth, they are your factory, they are your planting ground. So go to the factory, go to the planting ground as you wish. But Prophet ﷺ gave restrictions with regards to that situation when it comes to entry and dealing with women. So in this case, you see, can one follow Ibn Umar? So what Ibn Umar said, no. Not if the Prophet ﷺ clarified that this is the way that you deal with the women, this is the way that you don't deal with the woman as a husband, as a wife. Relationship. So this example, you follow the way of the companions when it agrees with the Quran, when it agrees with the Sunnah, or if it's something from the custom of the people it agrees with, that is not clearly haram. And lastly, all of those four imams, they said again, إِذَا صَحَّ الْحَدِيثُ وَمَذْهَبِي. If you find, like in the case of Imam Malik, a hadith that overrides what he taught, then he changes position. The famous issue, do you clean between the toes when you make wudu? Now, do you clean between the toes at all? May some people be asked that, maybe he doesn't clean his toes at all. But wudu, you should clean the feet. Should you clean between the toes? Imam Malik was asked. He said, no. There's no text, it's not from Sunnah. Then that same student, who was a shaykh, traveled, and he gained a hadith that proves Imam Malik was wrong. When he got back to Medina, he went right to Imam Malik to discuss the issue, and he didn't even finish the wording, he just pulled the chain of the hadith. Who it came from, Imam Malik knew it was sahih. He knew it was authentic, and he said this was from the Sunnah Prophet with the pinky finger to wash between the toes. You know, you have bacteria, the toes are tight. If you have on sandals, if you have on flip-flops, Egyptian language, chip. If you have on sneakers, you know, they need air, they need to be clean. So again, it's practical to clean between the toes. And Imam Malik, the next time he was asked, when you make wudu, should you clean between the toes? He said, yes, it's sunnah. So this is how we should deal with these issues. We shouldn't fight. We shouldn't think this madhab is right, meaning whatever that teacher taught, whatever is attributed to him, that's the fine line, nothing more, nothing less. No, the Islam is not like that. And we said again, all of them mentioned, when you find something that's from the Sunnah of the Prophet, then that becomes their way. And all of them agreed that people are human, they are right, they're wrong, they make mistakes. So look at their positions. Whatever agrees with the book of Allah and the Sunnah, then you take it. Whatever doesn't, discard it, get rid of it. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبد الله ورسوله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. وبارك الله فيكم.
Any questions for Shaykh Ukkasha related to the topic? Please go ahead, brother.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
My question is like, my father, my grandfather, they might be Hanafi or something, but I am not sure. I am following any mazhab or not. You know, like whatever is I'm feeling like from the Sunnah or hearing from the Imam,
Yes.
I'm following that. So
Alhamdulillah.
is that any problem?
Barakallahu feek. Based on what you just heard, you sound intellectual, you sound intelligent, and you sound like you're moving in one direction towards the Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah bless us and help us in that travel and give us the Jannah. Ameen.
Amen.
What do you think? You will take what somebody is saying, parents, culture, madhab, over what Allah said, His Messenger, over what makes more sense, because the deen is a deen that makes sense. It's not a deen of being a robot. Again, Allah mentioned the Quran and many lies. One of them, yatadabbaru. And so you can think about it. You think about it because the next thing you got to make a move with that Quran. Then there's seeking understanding, fahmu. So understanding. So you answered your own question. Keep doing what you're doing. Be respectful to them if they're lying. Don't try to change them as many people do. Dad, you know, you want this is wrong, this is sunnah. Be easy. The main goal for you, you worship along what you have. And when you're not scholarly, you can't impose things on others anyway. So stay the course. Whatever comes from Quran, you understand. Whatever comes from authentic sunnah, you understand. Whatever comes from something that's practical, rather than just following somebody just because, then that's what you follow. And keep a clean intention to do right and to please Allah, and you'll be okay. Jazakallah khair.
Any other questions?
So we're going to give everybody a quiz right now. Everybody going to jump up and run out the